Good afternoon to all. So the quiz results were very good. In my three sections, the mean scores were 35, 37, and the highest mean score for the sections is 37.8. So that means you did well, and the quiz was, let's say, not that really hard. And I will be returning online your quiz results by tomorrow. Okay, and then I've already submitted your advisory grades. The advisory grades were based on your quiz performance only, since I haven't checked your assignment yet. So for today's session, we will have functions. We will be discussing the definition, domain, range, and composition of functions today or in this session. So let's begin by defining the concept of a function. There we have it. It is essentially a matching, an association, or the word we have there is a pairing between two sets. Each set has an element. And if we call the two sets as capital X and capital Y, then we define a function which we usually denote by small letters like F, G, or sometimes H, or sometimes even capital letters, capital F of X, and so on. So a function F from, that's how we read this, a function F from a set X to a set Y is a pairing between a set X and a set Y, such that, okay, it satisfies the following condition. For each element of X, which we may denote by small x, there corresponds exactly one element Y in the set Y. So it is from the set X to the set Y, not from the set Y to the set X. And each element in the first set X has a pair. And that pair will come from the other set Y. And the rule is each element in X has only one element in Y corresponding to it or paired to it, matched, associated to it. So that's the definition of a function. Now, later on, we will be giving a more mathematical definition of a function using equations. But for now, let's define the following. The domain of the function F. So since there are two sets involved, we call the first set the domain of the function F. And that should be obvious. However, for the range, it may not necessarily be the second set Y. For the reason that not all elements in Y may be paired with an element in X. Well, for a function whose domain is X, each element of the set X has an element of Y paired to it. But again, it's not necessary that all the elements of Y have an element of capital X paired to it. So what is the range? It's the set of all elements in Y for which there corresponds an element in X. In other words, those elements which do not have a pair are excluded from the range of the function. Is that clear? So if you just have any question regarding those definitions, just send a message in the chat box or just unmute your mic if I don't notice your message. No question? Now, the usual way we define a function is as follows. It's a set can be defined as a set of ordered pairs. Since we have a pairing, so we use, instead of a diagram, which we can draw by pairing diagrammatically or graphically each element of X to its corresponding element in Y by using arrows. But instead of doing that, we can just write down those pairings as a set of, or as ordered pairs. And then we collect those ordered pairs and thus form a set. So that instead of defining a function as a pairing, we can define it as a set. A set, not just on any set, but a set of ordered pairs, satisfying the following condition, which is equivalent to the condition stated here in the definition, such that, okay, no two ordered pairs have the same X coordinate. So in the definition here, for each element X in X, there corresponds exactly one and only one element Y in capital Y. So that means an X in capital X cannot have more than one Y in capital Y paired to it. It has, let's say, a unique pair. And if we translate that to ordered pairs, that would mean that all X coordinates will have just exactly one Y coordinate paired to it. So in other words, no two of the ordered pairs in that set, okay, have the same X coordinate. And that should be familiar to you. That was the usual way functions were defined in secondary school. So let's illustrate this with an example. So consider that set on the screen there, whose elements are negative 1, 5, 0, 3, 1, 5, 2, 11, 3, 21. There are 5 elements only in this set, although we usually think of it just as a set. However, this set can be thought of as a function. Why? Because it pairs elements. First, coordinates paired to second coordinates, or X coordinates to Y coordinates. So, for example, this one pairs negative 1 to 5, 0 to 3, pairs 1 to 5, matches 2 to 11, associates 3 to 21. So, it's a pairing. And it's a function. Why? Because it satisfies the condition. Notice that no X element or X coordinate has more than one Y coordinate. So it is a function. So since it is a function, we can now proceed to writing down the domain and the range of the function. The domain is just the set of all X values. So just collect the X values and you have the domain there. There are 5 coordinates. That would mean 5 X values. So our domain should have 5 elements. And then for the range, it's just the set of all Y values that are there. So we have 3, 5, 11, 21 for the range. And that's easy to, those two are easy to get simply because we have a finite set. But it will be different, of course, when we have an infinite set of ordered pairs. Now, observe also in that example that it is possible for a function to have an ordered pair there whose Y coordinate is paired to more than one X coordinate. For example, if you look at 5, this is a Y element, a Y coordinate, but notice that 5 is actually paired to more than one X element or X coordinate, negative 1 and 1. So negative 1 is paired to 5, 1 is also paired to 5, but still it is a function because no x coordinate has more than one y coordinate paired to it. So we can picture the function or the pairing using a diagram. So notice that I've just drawn all two sets here, and I put all the elements in the first set and all the elements, the y coordinates in the second set, the x coordinates in the first set. And then instead of using ordered pairs, I just picture the function by using arrows. So -1 is matched to 5, for example, would mean the coordinate -1, 5, 0 paired to 3 would mean the coordinate 0, 3, and so on and so forth. And diagrammatically, we see that no element in the first set is paired to more than one element in the second set. So it is a function. Now, however, that is not the usual way we define functions. And really, finite functions, meaning those whose ordered pairs are finite in number, are usually do not have much application and importance. So usually the function will contain an infinite number of ordered pairs, and so that would be impossible to picture using a diagram and also using a set of ordered pairs, because you cannot list an infinitely many number of ordered pairs. So usually we define a function using just one thing, and that one thing will include or comprehend all the ordered pairs in the function, in the set. So we use an equation that will, or that relates x and y. And that serves as sort of a rule that the pairing or the function obeys. And in this case, the domain will then be understood to be all the permissible values of x, which is the usual definition of domain. And the range will be just simply now the set of all values of y. So instead of one set versus another set, a pairing between two sets, so we just use an equation, and then all the x values will be for the domain, and then all the y values will be for the range. And using that equation and using the set of ordered pairs generated by that equation, we can collect all those ordered pairs. There are infinitely many ordered pairs. And then we plot them all theoretically, okay? Of course, physically, it's impossible to do it by hand, but we collect them all on the Cartesian plane, and we try to connect all those points using a continuous and smooth curve. Then that, what do you call that, curve will be called the graph of the function. So it's defined to be the collection of the ordered of f in the Cartesian plane. However, there's an easy test. Okay, of course, once we have defined it graphically, what a function is or what the graph of a function is, we can have or we can use the vertical line test to determine if the function or the set of ordered pairs is a function. So what's the vertical line test? So it says that the graph of a function can only be intersected by a vertical line in at most one point. And I believe you all are familiar with that. You may also be familiar with the horizontal line test, and that serves for inverse functions. Okay, but this one for determining if a certain pairing or ordered set of ordered pairs is a function. So let's illustrate that. So consider that function. Now, we read this as the function f, which is or which consists of the set of all ordered pairs xy satisfying this equation. So this equation would relate x and y is equal to the square of x. So what does this mean? If we think of this as a pairing, we know that the element x is paired to the element x squared, okay, which will be our y. And so the domain would be understood to be the set of all allowable values of x. And since it's just squaring the real number, so it will always be defined. In other words, the domain will be or is the set of all real numbers. But the range is not all real numbers, since not every real number has an x element paired to it. Since we are squaring the first element to get the second element, that means the y elements will always be non-negative. Could be 0 when x is 0, but any other value will yield a positive value for y. So range is R, well, sometimes we write it as R plus union 0. R plus meaning positive, and then union 0 because 0 is neither negative nor positive. Or just say set of all non-negative real numbers. And then we sometimes, instead of using this set notation, we use simply the notation f to denote that it's a function. Y equals f of x equals x squared, which is now the usual way of defining or stating a function. Now, let's look at this one. This one is a set of ordered pairs, and it has infinitely many. And if we collect all those ordered pairs, which you already know, we will have a graph that is a parabola that opens upwards. Already familiar to you from secondary school, with whose vertex is at the origin. And you know its graph. So by the vertical line test, it is a function. So no vertical line intersects its graph in more than one. Is there any question? Okay. So let's give an example of a relation, but not a function. So here, again, x and y are related, but this relation does not yield or does not produce a function. Why? Well, there are several reasons. One thing is that you can always find infinitely many, in fact, ordered pairs whose x coordinates are the same. Like, for example, there, 1, -1, and 1, 1. If you look at these coordinates, they satisfy the relation or the equation. X is equal to y squared. You plug in x equals 1, y equals -1, the equation will be true. You plug in x equals 1, y equals 1, the equation will be true. And notice that these two ordered pairs have the same x coordinate but different y coordinates. So it is not a function. But graphically, we can show that by graphing the set of ordered pairs here. And it's a parabola that opens sideways. And obviously, if it opens sideways, a vertical line will intersect it in 2 points, except at the vertex. So it is not a function. Any question on this illustration? Okay, now let's define the zero of a function, although familiar to you already. But the zero of a function is any value in the domain or x value, say c, that satisfies this condition. F of c is 0. In other words, it makes the function value 0 in value, or the y value 0. Illustration, or graphically, they are the x-intercepts. Just take note of that. Okay? So let's find the zeros of that function. It's a function of the polynomial of degree 6, 4 plus 2. Anyway, we just need to find the zeros of that. So what we do is set each of the factors present there. If not factored, then you have to factor it out. So if we set the first factor here to 0, which can be solved by factoring, we get the zeros 2 and negative 7. Of course, we have to set the other factor also to 0. But if we do that, notice that it will produce this equation. If we transpose one to the other side, this is impossible. This has no real solution. It has complex solutions, but no real solutions, because raising a real number to an even exponent always produces a non-negative result. And this is -1. So that's impossible. So this factor does not yield a 0. And therefore, the zeros are just -7 and 2. Are there questions so far? So let's have operations on functions. Now, this topic simply gives us a convenient way of defining addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of functions as follows. So suppose we have two functions f and g. We have the following. This symbol means we're simply adding the two functions. So f plus g of x is equal to f of x plus g of x. Similarly, f minus g of x simply means f of x minus g of x. Again, f times g would be the product of the two functions. So f of x times g of x. And similarly, for division, we have f over g of x, simply meaning f of x over g of x. Or we can rewrite this as a multiplication, f of x times the reciprocal of this function g of x. So let's illustrate that. Consider those two functions. F of x is 1 plus x over 2 minus x. G of x is 1 minus x over 2 plus x. Let's add f plus g of x. If you're asked for that, you know that you will be adding the two. So if we simply cut and paste those two here, put them here, we have that, but you are required to simplify. So I leave to you reviewing the process of simplification of rational expressions. So you will be taking the LCD, which is 2 minus x times 2 plus x, and then you divide by 2 minus x by the denominator times the numerator, divide by the denominator times the numerator. You'll be having this one on the entire numerator. And you just simplify the numerator, you get this one. So you just add. And similarly, we do it for the other compositions. Okay, so f minus g of x, instead of adding, we subtract. But be careful to distribute the negative sign over the numerator of the second expression. So I shall show. So notice the LCD is 2 minus x, 2 plus x. I divide that by 2 minus x times 1 plus x. I get this. Then divide this again by 2 plus x times 1 minus x. I get this. And I won't be showing all the details, but once you simplify this product, you distribute the negative sign over each term before you combine them all on the numerator. And you will get that. Just verify that that is the correct answer for f minus g. Product, f times g of x. So we multiply the two. And then there's not much to do here. We just multiply numerator to numerator, denominator to denominator. So we have this. Okay? Difference of squares. Any questions so far? And then f over g of x. So what is that? The quotient of the two functions, but instead of dividing by g, we multiply by the reciprocal of g. So I interchange the two here, the numerator and denominator meaning, and get this, and then multiply. And then numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, we get this. Okay? Now, since our teaching is online and I'm using a PowerPoint, the disadvantage of this is that you won't be seeing me doing it manually. So you will have to verify my answers, and for your benefit, you will have to do it yourself so that you will be familiar with the process, okay, or with the technique. Is there any question again? So let's go to the last, okay, for today. Composition of two functions. So we had functions, its definition, domain, range, vertical line test, and we had addition, subtraction, multiplication, division of functions. So last one for today, composition of f with g, which we denote by this symbol. It's read as f circ for circle, CIRC, f circ of g, f circ g, or just simply f of g. And we define that composition as follows. Note that the order in which we write the composition matters. So it's defined to be f circ g of x is f of g of x. G is inside f, not the other way around. The inner function here is g, the outer is f, so it should also, g should also be the inner one here, f the outer one here. Illustration. Okay. My screen is showing. How do I get this out? Okay, anyway. Let's see here. Anyone knows how you can make this disappear on top of my screen? It's hindering the function there. Anyway. Okay, there. So we have those two functions, the same functions in our previous example. So let's this time do the composition. So we did f plus g, f minus g, f times g, f over g. So f circ g, or f of g of x. So to avoid confusion, all you have to do is put the expression for g inside this f, which is this g, which I put here. Okay? So this is g inside. And then since you have f outside, what you do is for each occurrence of x here, you replace by this one. So it will become like this. Do you have any question on that? Please look at how I wrote f of g of x. So I replace this x by this expression, I get that. I replace this x by this expression, I get this. Okay? So 1 plus the expression, 2 minus the expression. So 1 plus the expression, 2 minus the expression. And to simplify this one, we multiply by the LCD, which is 2 plus x, over 2 plus x, which is 1, not affecting the value, but simplifying the expression. And if we distribute 2 plus x, okay, times 1, 2 plus x times this, 2 plus x cancels out. Same thing for the denominator, distribute to 2. You get 4 plus 2x. Okay? Distribute to this. 2 plus x cancels out. You have 1 minus x. And then a minus the expression. So that minus has to be distributed. Okay so far? And then you will get 3 over 3 plus 3x, which can still be simplified, although that technically is already correct. But we want it as simple looking as possible. So yan, 1 over 1 plus x. Yun lang siya, yung napaka komplikadong expression na yan. 1 over 1 plus x. Now, it's not the same, okay, as g of f of x. This time for g circ f of x, we have f inner, g outer. So g of the function f of x. And then we put f of x here inside. And then this time for each occurrence of x in g, we replace by f, by this expression. Same thing as before. And we have that now. And then we just follow the same steps. We multiply by 2 minus x over 2 minus x. We distribute the 2 minus x. Okay? Like that. And then get this. Just verify that. And then you do more simplifications. That's the final appearance of g circ f of x. So at least you know how to, or first you know what the composition is and how to arrive at the composition if you are given the two functions in the composition. Who has a question? Okay, in this one, under composition, last example. So now, several questions like this may come out in the next quiz where you are given a composition and you are to find the domain. Now, the tricky thing here is that some students are tempted to simplify the composition when finding the domain, and that is wrong, as I will explain in this next example. So consider these two functions, f of x equals 1 over 1 minus x, and g of x equals 1 over square root of x squared minus 1. Now, let's get the composition of f with g. And we will analyze the composition without simplifying, as opposed to what we did a while ago where we simplified. So f circ g of x is this. You put g inside f. So you replace this x by this whole g. So replace that, you get this one. And we do not simplify that one, okay? If you simplify, you'll get things wrong. You'll omit some of the values in the, or you will be rather including some values in the domain which are not supposed to be there. So let's analyze that expression there. Now, there are a lot of things that will make this expression undefined, like it has the presence of roots. When you have even roots, then the expression inside those roots must be non-negative. If odd, of course, always defined, but if even, not always defined. So it must be greater than or equal to 0. So this one here has a root. So the expression inside must be greater than or equal to 0, okay? And without showing you the details, which you already know, okay, by the way, how to solve, okay, an inequality using what? Sign chart method or table of signs. You do that, get the critical numbers of this, -1 and 1. Because if you factor this out, x plus 1 times x minus 1. Okay? Then verify, once you have the sign chart, that these are the intervals that you will be looking for. Okay. So negative infinity, -1, 1 to infinity. So we omitted the middle interval there. Now, aside from the presence of the root there, there's the presence of denominators. You cannot divide by 0. But there are several denominators. Look at this one. There's a denominator here. Also, if you look at this one, the whole thing, you have a denominator here. So that means we have to take care of 2. So let's look at this one here. This has a denominator. So if its denominator is 0, the whole thing is already undefined. So that means this denominator cannot be 0. So I put that here. It cannot be 0. And we just solved that inequality. And obviously, for it to be 0, sorry, I did not put positive and negative 1. Sorry for the typo error. So just remind yourself, we exclude 1 and negative 1. So if you solve this inequality, x should not be equal to 1. It's just like solving an equality, okay, an equality, but later, after solving, you replace that equality with an inequality like this, not equal to. Now, next, look at this denominator here under the 1. That should not be 0. Okay? And if we solve, let me show. We transpose 1. Okay? This here. Then just switch places. So this should not be equal to 1. And then we cross multiply. Okay? Solving an not inequality, okay, is the same as solving an equality. So there. Cross multiply. Square both sides. Transpose. And then square root, plus minus. And that's it. So for this to be non-zero, x should not be equal to plus or minus square root of 2. So what have we excluded in the domain? Okay, 1. And a while ago, negative 1 and 1 for the square root. Negative 1 and 1. And then we exclude 1. It's already included here. And then we exclude also plus and minus square root of 2. Okay, from, we go back, from this one. Okay. So we exclude negative 1, we exclude 1, and we also exclude plus minus square root of 2. So it would have a hole in each interval present here in the union. This will have a hole at negative square root of 2. This will have a hole at square root of 2. So how do you write down the answer? Well, we can use set notation. We can just write x less than negative 1, x greater than 1. Okay? This is the interval before, where we exclude the endpoints. And then just write not equal to plus minus square root of 2, the most convenient way of doing it. Or we can use interval notation by breaking up the interval into 2 subintervals for each of those intervals present in the union. And we'll have this. Oops, where is it? There. So this is like your negative infinity to negative 1, but the negative square root of 2 was excluded. So we have to use a union to show that, to break up the 2, not including that point. And similarly, this is for 1 to infinity, and then we exclude the square root of 2. Is there any question, class? Do you have any question also regarding your quiz or any requirement regarding the assignment which is due today? So none, then guess that's it for today. We'll have session on Friday, okay?
Sir, may question po si Gian sa chat.
Sorry, hindi ko nakita eh. Saan na ba yun? Where's the chat? Okay. This is regarding the assignment, right? What did I put? Okay, I will change the timing in Canvas. So you can still submit it by 12 p.m. tonight. Until 12 p.m. tonight. Is that okay? Okay, so that's it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.